My name is Jessie Riley, and I'm from Little Rock, Arkansas. Um, Back in Little Rock after all these years. Um,
How did you get into running?
my dad ran. Most ultra runners, as far as how I got into it, most ultra runners, their family wasn't runners, and that's interesting to me. But my family were runners. My dad always ran. Um, let's see. I always wanted to be a runner, but I had my lungs crushed in this accident when I was a kid, and I didn't breathe right. It took me a long time to sort of get over that. Um, I jogged in high school. I jogged to junior high school, to and from. Um, but it wasn't serious, smaller distances, never more than 2 or 3 miles at a time, usually. But after sort of traumatic graduation from high school and sort of wandering for a few years trying to get it together what I wanted to do with my life, then I started running, and then I started approaching it like an ambitious person, and it was completely different. Yeah.
What was this accident that you had as a kid?
You know, I was messing around with some moving men. I was about 4 or 5, and they were trying to get this couch out of a moving van, and they shoved it out of a side door, and I was just underneath it. It opened all of a sudden, they pushed it out, and there I was underneath it. I think it knocked me out. It bled a lot. I still have a small scar here on my forehead. So they stopped the bleeding eventually. No one realized that I probably had a lot of fractured ribs, you know, and they're slow to heal. But you know, you're a kid, you just sort of bounce back. I've got good bones, always have. I don't think I really broke anything, but if it's never noticed, it sort of festers, you know, and you try to baby it, and yeah, I had to really break through that as an older man. I had to really breathing is sort of, it's forced me to really train longer and harder, not so much intensity. Yeah, where I get winded.
So how did you get into, let's say, the marathon distance?
Originally, I started training in '85. I didn't know what I was training for. I'd heard of marathons. I'd heard of ultras. So they had a marathon, and I moved to be near my brother, who was going to Washington State University, Pullman, Washington, and they had a marathon every year in March. So I guess I was thinking about entering. I just trained really hard all the time. I didn't know what my limit was. Tried everything, different diets, read a million books about it. Eventually, I caught a cold right before the marathon. Did 3:07 the first time. Probably should have done a little better, but this was something that defined my career, was these opportunistic infections in my lungs, because it's like my weak point now. They're stressed trying to expand my lungs fully to do the kind of speed work I need to do to get faster. And like the day after a marathon, I would just feel like I'd just been beaten with a bat on the back of just in the middle of my back, because my lungs are trying to expand, and they got all this scar tissue there, and it would be a little painful. That was always just like this big limiting factor, was the lung thing. Yeah.
Is it highly unusual for a first-time marathoner to run 3:07?
Everyone else thought I did great, although, you know, some guys have done a lot better their first time. But I was really disappointed. I thought I was going to do 2:45 or 2:50, which I probably couldn't have done anyway. But, you know, I was always a person who thought I should be doing better. I kept selling myself short, but in a way that was my strength. I was always motivated. I thought, you know, I really should train harder. I should eat better. I should lose more weight. And this kind of gung-ho style has sort of defined me as a person, always with the caveat that as a runner, you're going gung-ho for something that's essentially a healthy activity. It's like you're going gung-ho for drugs. I have gone gung-ho for food, but I certainly always had a good appetite, you know, just a natural thing that's gotten out of hand. Didn't bother me in those days. if you could eat a lot, it kept you from losing too much weight and burning out. A lot of runners burn out if they train hard enough. It's very common.
So tell me about barefoot running or walking to Atlanta, and then meeting Trishul Churns in Pensacola.
Let's see, so barefoot running, after that marathon, my knees were killing me. I always ran in flat sneakers. I didn't even have any running shoes. I ran in like Converse basketball sneakers. Had all these knee problems. I thought, shoes suck, I'm gonna try. The next day I went out and walked on the track barefoot for like 6 miles a day after this marathon, and I was getting these kicks. I tried all these experiments, going without food or this or that. And so barefoot, it is superior, yeah. But I can't recommend it because it's so hard to practice enough in our culture. It's a very big taboo to go around barefoot. It makes you look like a homeless person. But it is effective. It's a completely different thing, and it's been covered. But I loved it for a while, but it just got too hard to keep up the kind of calluses by always doing it and looking like an alienated person, a homeless person, But so that was '86. So I've been training several months, 9 to 10 months. I moved to Clemson to be near my mom. So that was 130 miles from Atlanta. I was doing long walks to races. I tried, for instance, late in '86, I walked like 17, 18 miles to a race, did the 10K, and walked back. So that was like 42 miles total, something like that. Walking was easy for me. I loved it, but I needed the running to build my strength and speed. But there was another runner there who did both the 10K and he turned around and did the 5K, and I was shocked. Byron Backer, he eventually became an ultra runner and a multi-day runner. And I thought, wow, you don't get tired after 10K. And I eventually tried that, back-to-back races where in South Carolina you'd have a mile for the kids, a 5K for the younger runners, like high school, and then the 10K was usually the centerpiece, and I'd do all three. And you sometimes do kind of hit the wall in the third race, but usually you can do it, and I was surprised by that. I have kind of a plow horse metabolism. I eat well, but I go slower. I need more work. So I was always, I guess, destined to be an ultra runner, in that I like to do a lot of training volume. Speed was definitely not my thing. So
how did you get to Atlanta?
So that was, by then it was the next year, '87, still in Clemson, and I thought, well, I'll just, since walking doesn't make me very tired, and I always need to burn a lot of calories and keep from eating too much, I was always trying to get fitter and fitter. What was the limit, Trans Am, eventually, it was a big deal to eventually find what some of the limits were and how the average person can really break through, with the long distance. But at that time, I'll just walk there, maybe lose some weight, maybe have a fast 10K at Peachtree race, July in Georgia, hot as hell. So I tried it. By then I may have heard about the 1300 and started thinking about how I was going to train for it. And it was a big experience. I did 60 miles walking the first day, not knowing where the gas stations were, going long hours without any aid. And anything stopped me. And sometimes your family think they know you, but a lot of people, when you're ambitious and younger now, I realize, you say no one knows how far I can go to get what I want. There can't be any backing down. I got a storage unit, living illegally with no facilities. I got a gym membership in Key West, lived there at the gym. Had steam, sauna, weights, bicycles, exercise bikes. Just lived at the gym, worked a lot. They needed a lot of workers in a tourist town. And I had never worked a lot of hours, but then all of a sudden working overtime, working 2 jobs. I was ambitious, and this was the time I decided I was going to make my move. And I think everyone has been there, especially men, are expected to, be the breadwinner or gain a marketable skill, and this was my time. I just decided that, you had that feeling at some point, I've got to make my move. This is where we draw the line in mud. That's what they always say in the South. This is where we decide that no one can either go beyond this, or no one can come and get me at this point. This is where I build my fortress, This is where the starting line is, or the finish line. This is my goal. And so
your first Shrishimoy experience was?
Yeah, I did one tune-up, a 48-hour. That was where, fortunately, it was in Pensacola, Florida. I was in Key West. It was close, indoors. Didn't have to have good gear. I didn't even bring any running shoes to my first running ultra marathon. I brought sneakers again. Thought I was going to do the whole thing barefoot. Ended up doing about 70 miles barefoot. It was a first time race. A lot of races are very good deals the first time. Then you lose so much money, you charge a lot more the next time, or the race completely collapses. This is one of those first time events. Gary Buffington invited a few runners, Ray Kay, Trishel, Gary Cantrell was there. He was good friends with Buffington. There was a lot of good runners there. And did 101 miles the first day in a kind of fly and die deal. Did 70 miles of it barefoot. Everyone was kind of shocked that I did so much barefoot. Completely collapsed the second day, did about 20 miles walking. My overall impression, it wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. I was like getting 100 miles after crashing completely and then coming back in one day. I felt really bad, but at that age you recover quickly. So then I had 3 more months to get an invite to the 1300, and the day they accepted me was just a great day.
Where were you? Do you remember when you got the notice?
I called from a payphone at work where I was washing dishes in the Santa Maria motel. I didn't have a phone or anything else, of course. Just called him up from a payphone at work, and Tarek said, "Well, you don't seem to have the experience. I got your application. We're gonna give you a shot." And it was just a tremendous feeling. I was finally starting my new life. It's like, well, you've been on the stage, your first big role or leading role or on a professional role. I mean, this was my big debut. I was being given the chance to show what I could do, and everything changed getting there. There was a million good runners. It was the 1300 was taking place with the 1,000-mile World Championship. Again, first one that ever been held, official IAU World Championship. A lot of guys were given airfare, everyone with a good time. So the kind of deep talent and what you could learn, especially if you were the back of the pack or you weren't directly competing with these guys, they would give you a leg up, they'd teach you a few things. Everything changed, and of course Kroos got the world record. It was like going to school and all the teachers were, the best in their field. It was really great, and I didn't do particularly well, although I thought I did pretty well for the first time, but I got to about 360 or 354 the first 6 days. You had to get 350 to stay in the race, so I just barely made it. But along the way, you have so many highs and lows, and the Sri Chinmoy himself, the crew people, the other disciples in the race, the non-disciples in the race who are often the best runners, they were invited. Then the medics and everyone, the energy is unbelievable. People are just working together. You don't do anything but run. You don't have to feed yourself. I mean, you don't have to cook, clean. All your laundry is done. You just keep moving. and I was shocked how well they did it. They set a very high standard, and this is something you run into eventually with guys like Al. Nothing's as aggravating as a good example. They never quit, they never take breaks, they don't stop in the rain, and they force you to match their skill. They are your role models setting the example at every moment. The whole organization's being built so you never have to stop. All your excuses are gone, and you have to make your move and show that you're, worth it. That you didn't waste the race director's time by letting you in the thing.
You
Yeah.
finished with how many miles?
So we got 3:54 the first 6 days.
I finished.
Oh, as far as how many miles I got as a finish, I think 611. I cracked the second week. Yeah. Cracked the second week and just did about 35 a day. The really great thing is I could stay at the race since I was booked up for 5 more days and wasn't flying back to Key West. And 5 days sitting around was good recovery, and I didn't burn out. I was able to go back to work after 5 days rest, and felt extremely strong. Over the course of a few weeks, you can feel the adrenaline sort of building back up. Your body says, "Oh, that was tough. We're gonna have to get tougher." I lost about a pound a day during the race, so I'm 6'3", went from 183 at the start of the race to about 170 by the end of the race, down to 158 after the race. I lost 25 pounds. By that point, you're just like, you feel like you're ready to walk through walls. You really feel strong, lean, and mean, and you think this was the kind of thing I always had in mind, that you're starting to test your real limits. You're starting to see your body really come into form, more than you ever imagined.